In 1966, the Chicago Bears drafted the son of a Pennsylvania coal miner in the 4th round. Doug Buffone would go on to play 15 seasons for the Bears and later be named one of the 100 greatest Bears of all time. His allegiance to the Bears never waned, even when he took to the microphone and witnessed some horrendous Bears teams.
The fact is, there's not the fear put into them, because this game is a lot about fear. You either do the job, or you go home and go sell hamburgers at McDonald's.
Doug told it like it is, and that's part of the reason his nephew John has dedicated this show to Doug. And now John Buffone is spreading Buffone-branded beratements just like his uncle.
Win the football game. You're the head coach. I don't care what you have your fingers in. I don't care what you're meddling in. You're the head freaking coach. We get it. You're the most important guy on the staff. You don't have to keep trying to legitimize that.
And he's got pep talks too.
I love this team. And I know everyone watching and listening loves this team. So while we may be pessimistic and cynical, every one of us still has hope that the stars will align at some point. And if that ever does happen, you'll be glad you stuck around.
John is telling it like it is here on Buffone 55. And joining John are Alyssa Barbieri, managing editor of USA Today's NFL Wires, including Bears Wire, and also Danny Shimon, lead game and draft analyst for the Barroom Network. Buckle up and bear down. This is Buffone 55, the John Buffone Show.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Buffone 55, a fast-paced approach at breaking down the Chicago Bears. My name is John Buffone, and with me as always is my co-host and producer, Alyssa Barbieri. Alyssa, new season, same result. We were once again hoodwinked into thinking that the Chicago Bears could start the season off on a positive note by defeating the Green Bay Packers, but here we are just trying to pick up the pieces yet again. How you doing?
It's been a couple days and it still stings a little. I mean, going into this game, we had all this optimism. That's the most optimistic I think we've ever been on this show. It finally felt like the tide was turning, and then it just happened to be a continuation, game 18 of the 2022 season. So, I mean, that's about as bad as it could have been, even if they were to lose. I mean, but that was just embarrassing.
We wanted to see something different, and it's almost like we saw a mirror image. It's almost like it was game 18 of the 2022 season. I think that's what really hurt me the most, was just like, I thought this was a different team. They're supposedly new players. There's supposed to be something different about this team, and there wasn't. And that was just a gut-wrenching game for all Bears fans who were watching that game and thinking, oh my God, why did I get my hopes up? They're doing it to us again.
It never fails. But you want to know what? We're here, guys, for all the barflies. We're here. This is your therapy session. We're going to talk it out. We're going to rant. Get ready.
You're absolutely right. Before we jump into trying to break down this mess, Alyssa, can you give everyone a rundown of how Buffone 55 works this year?
Absolutely. So we're going to start the show with our classic B55 segment. That's when I ask John 5 questions about the Bears, and his responses must be completed within 55 seconds. The 55 is John's way of paying tribute to the great Doug Buffone, his uncle, his mentor, and a man who played 15 seasons with the Bears and wore number 55. Then at halftime, we're going to break down the Bears' upcoming opponents. And this week, we're going to take a deep dive on the Baker Mayfield-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We then finish things up with a free-for-all that we call Buffone's Basement, where Danny Shimon joins John and me, and the three of us are going to try to make sense of this disaster that was week 1. So, John, I'm guessing that you're still fuming like me from Sunday's game. So are you ready to do this?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty ready to do this tonight, yeah.
Buckle up, guys. Here we go. It's time for our B55 segment. That's when I'm going to ask John 5 questions here. And he's somehow going to fit his responses into 55 seconds, though I'm assuming he's probably going to go over a little bit today. So let's get it started. So, John, I don't need to tell you, but Sunday was an absolute disaster with the Bears falling to the Packers 38-20 in a game that never really felt close, even with the score being 10-6 at halftime. As you were watching that debacle unfold, I'm curious, what was going through your mind? You have 55 seconds. Good luck.
Look, I know you aren't supposed to make up your mind on a team in week 1, but that was absolutely pathetic. It looked like nothing changed at all. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't pass the ball. The defense was getting picked apart. They made Jordan Love look like a Hall of Famer. The play calling was suspect, and even special teams looked flimsy. We were supposed to see improvement. We didn't expect a Super Bowl roster, but something was supposed to look better. This is like a crappy cereal company that wants to make more money, but instead of making better cereal, they just keep putting the same crappy product in a new shiny box and call it new and improved. And that's what we got on Sunday. New players, same crappy product. This loss left such a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not sure how I'm going to rinse it out. Even if they beat Tampa, I'm still going to be pissed off about the Green Bay game because you only get so many chances to prove that something is going to be different against your biggest rival who's been kicking your ass for 30 years. And now the national narrative is the Packers remain stable and the Bears remain a mess.
I mean, that was quite literally the worst possible scenario for the Bears on Sunday. And it wasn't even one we considered because as Bears fans, we always know that there's that chance that the Packers are going to beat the Bears. That's happened most of our lives, John.
Right.
But the way that went down was just embarrassing, inexcusable. I mean, it was so demoralizing when they're showing the Bears offensive players on the sideline just looking like, oh my God, like that's how you know it was bad. And that's how the fans felt as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like, honestly, it took everything out of me, like emotionally draining. Isn't football supposed to be fun?
I'm like I waited 8 months for this.
Even if like you're losing sometimes, like last year, there was some games where it was still fun, even though they lost, but like that was about as bad as it could have gotten. And just the game, it was exhausting. Like I was thinking like, we had to come on this show again and talk about another Packers loss. I still have not been able to celebrate a Bears win over the Packers on this show. And it's just,
what is it? 9 in a row? 9 in a row they've beaten the Bears now?
No.
It's at some point, and like I why do we keep putting hope into this? That something's going to change. Like I get that there's a lot of overreaction in week 1, but I'm going to overreact today because we waited so freaking long to see something different, and it was exactly the same.
We already experienced last season 3 wins. That 3-14 season, I don't want to relive it.
No.
If so, like just come ahead. I mean, we'll be on here, but if you want to re-experience that season, go listen to Buffone 55 last year. We have the rundown. It's gonna be the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I can't agree more.
Okay, so John, after the game, head coach Matt Eberflus didn't have anything of real substance to offer the media, stating that he had to go back and look at the tape on a number of items. So John, we know it's only week 2 of his second year, but what is your analysis of Coach Eberflus so far? 55 seconds are on the clock.
Go back and look at the tape, huh? I can't wait until he starts saying that we need to find the whys and that everyone had a great week of practice. Coach, I don't think you need to look at the tape to know that you got your ass beat in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Your offense, at best, was a sputtering unit, and the defense couldn't get off the field. So I have to say this because I said the same thing about Matt Nagy. When Nagy was here and the offense was horrible, I said, you were brought in here to revolutionize the Bears' offense. You were supposed to make this into a high-octane unit. And if your side of the ball is bad, what is it that you're bringing to the table? So I must say the same thing to Matt Eberflus. You were brought here because of your ability to run the defense in Indianapolis. But this defense that Ryan Poles sunk about $100 million into this offseason looks like the same joke we saw last year at a fraction of the cost. So, Coach, I don't know how hands-on you really are with the defense, but something needs adjusted, and it needs adjusted now before we see that same kind of performance this week.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it feels like just like a redux of the 2022 year. Like, I mean, like this is not his first season. I mean, I just feel disappointed because like even last year when they were losing and losing and losing, his team competed even during that 10-game losing streak. Like except for the week 17 game against the Lions, right? And now the roster is better, right? You have more money put into it, and it's the same performance. And it's like, what are you doing? I mean, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, but it trickles down to the rest of the coaching staff as well. This does not look like a team prepared to play. You had all off season, and you had 2 weeks specifically after the preseason to prepare for the Packers, your biggest rival who's humiliated you for years. And that's the performance that you put out there. And kind of listening to some of the players too talk about how surprised they were that was the product. But if you went into the game with this game plan that you've had months to do, and that's the outcome, how are you surprised by that? Like, it felt, I mean, it was, and that's on Matt Eberflus. That is his job. Like, yes, he's not calling plays on defense, which I think is a mistake. Alan Williams, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I mean, it's just brutal all around. This is your second year. This is when you're supposed to take that step forward. Like, we're talking about Justin Fields taking steps forward. So do the coaches.
Right. And we can't say that these are, we'll get to the offensive side of the ball, but we can't say that, they're first time play callers now. They let them work through it. They're not anymore. Nope. And so eventually, as a head coach, you need to know when you have to make a hard decision and take over something. And I hope that time is coming soon.
Absolutely. So, John, we're going to stick with the defense. So, no, I know you're excited about that.
Goody.
You mentioned the high-priced free agents that were brought in, but the results look very similar to last year, if not worse. What was your take on the defensive performance against the Packers? 55 seconds and go.
Look, the Bears defense is like a creamery that only serves vanilla, and they can't even get that right. Look, Alan Williams appears to be committed to this bland shell cover 2 scheme, despite the fact they can't get any pressure with the front 4. This was Jordan Love's real first pressurized start as the Packers quarterback without his best receiver on the road, and the Bears defense did everything they could to make sure he didn't get too rattled. I can't think of a better scenario for Jordan Love. He literally had all day to throw the football and go through his progressions, have a sip of coffee, and then throw the ball. Someone was eventually going to get open. I truly hope at some point someone asks, what exactly is the defensive strategy? If all the stars aligned, what are you trying to do? Because I'm not an NFL coach, but if I'm at home against an inexperienced quarterback, I want to know how he reacts to people flying at him. I want to see if he can make an errant throw or a bad decision when there's heat in the kitchen. But there wasn't any of that. You were already getting toasted. Why not throw the house at the young quarterback and see if you can force some turnovers? I don't understand it.
Yeah, again, like the game plan, I'm just completely confused by it. When you have, like you mentioned, a young quarterback making his second career start and the first pressurized start, as you said, and you let him just stay comfortable back there from start to finish, what do you think is going to happen? Like, you need to make adjustments. I mean, even the game was attainable at halftime. 4 points. You're down 4 points. That game is winnable still. And yet you refuse to make adjustments. Jordan Love just completely shredded the defense. And it was like, oh my God, here we go. Another Packers quarterback that's going to own the Bears. I mean, it was just embarrassing. And this is now, I saw a stat today where Alan Williams' defense in 9 of the last 11 games has allowed 28 points or more. Like, that is just inexcusable. That cannot happen. It was an embarrassment all around.
And their idea is to let's just keep doing that. That's the fix. Just keep doing that and see what happens. I'm sure. Like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Okay, that's that. Being
a fan of the Bears.
Yeah, that pretty much summarizes being a Bears fan. So all right.
Pretty much. Okay, so now we're going to shift the offensive side of the ball, which is not going to make things better at all. Justin Fields threw for 216 yards with a touchdown and a pick 6. But there weren't many fireworks from a receiving squad that was supposed to be among the fastest and best in the NFL. So throw in the fact that Fields also led the team in rushing with 59 yards, and it amounted to a very lackluster performance. What irritated you the most, and there's plenty to choose from, about this Bears offense last Sunday, and good luck fitting this into 55 seconds.
Well, I'm glad you didn't ask me to limit it to one thing because that would be impossible. But we kept hearing about Fields' chemistry with DJ Moore and how they were on the same page through camp. Moore, the guy that was part of that trade involving the number 1 overall pick, got 2 targets, both of which he caught for 25 yards. So was this lack of production because of the player or the play calling? I really don't care, but it's insane that you wouldn't use him a little bit more. The offensive line, much like the defensive line, was getting pushed around. The running game was subpar at best. Herbert averaged 3 yards per carry. Foreman averaged 3.2. 2, and Roschon Johnson averaged 4, although he really didn't get involved until about the second half. Then you have Chase Claypool, who the Bears essentially gave up a first-round pick for, with 2 targets, 0 catches, and some of the worst blocking I've ever seen. I don't know what the hell is going on, but if that continues, that's going to go down as one of the worst trades in recent memory for the Bears. Then you're trying QB sneaks with Cole Kmet. You can't convert on 4th and inches, and only 3 of Justin Fields' 37 passes went beyond 10 yards. So is that irritating enough?
Oh my gosh, there's just like, where do you start? And I forgot about that first series with the direct snap to Cole Kmet, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Like, and you can't, I was like, that was when I knew the game was over, which is ridiculous. It's overreaction. Obviously, there's plenty of game left to be played, but I felt like that was the beginning of the end because it felt like the same old thing. And like you said on offense, I mean, the fact that DJ Moore was targeted twice on the same drive and he caught both of them, and then they just completely ignored him. Made no sense. So, like, I mean, what am I most irritated about? Maybe Luke Getsy, I'd have to say, because we're going back to it. This is not his first year being a play caller anymore. The excuses are over. He reverted back to week 1, week 2, like the beginning before that, leading up to the Washington debacle last year, right? This is the same Luke Getsy. He forgot what Justin Fields did well. Like, he didn't roll him out. I mean, like, it's like they're forcing Fields to be a pocket passer. I feel like we're having the same conversation again.
No,
that we just had
feel
last
like I'm in the
year.
Twilight Zone. I had to check my calendar to make sure I was in the right year because I don't like. I feel like we're doing the same thing we did last year at this exact same time. But there's supposed to be better weapons this year, so we can't even blame lack of talent right now. So it's got to be. It's not. I mean, we can't just keep saying there's the weapons aren't there because they're there now. So is it the quarterback? Is it the play calling and the scheme? I mean, I watched some of that quarterback school video. Actually, I watched almost all of it, that whole hour, and I can't imagine. I don't know why I put myself through that because I couldn't even fall asleep after that. I'm like, why would I watch this before bed? Like, this is what a terrible thing to watch before you're trying to go to sleep because it just makes you angry. But I'm done with the excuses at this point.
Yeah, I made it 2 minutes into that, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to suck. I grabbed a glass of wine. I'm like, I need this to get through this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then, and Chase Claypool, like you mentioned, what the hell was that?
I don't know. I guess they had to sit down with him.
Did he want to be out there? Yeah, and like listen to Eberflus today. I'm like, that's something which you hope that it wasn't just like Luke Getsy that had a conversation or Tyke Tolbert. It better have been Matt Eberflus. And hearing the fact that like right. But like they didn't even deny that he might not be active for this Bucs game, which in week 2, after you traded the 32nd overall pick for this guy, I mean, My God, just what a disaster. Hey, new year, same old Bears.
Yeah, it's nothing. Absolutely nothing's changed. So I guess that's going to be the running theme of this entire show is, oh, look, nothing's changed. Good.
So buckle in. We're anything if consistent on this show because we have the same script to follow.
Yeah, I was gonna say nothing changed in what we're covering. So how are we gonna? There's only so many angles you can take to this.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna end on this. It's still really early in the season, and the time when fans overreact to their team for better or worse. Yeah. So is it a complete overreaction to say that this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is a must-win for the Bears this week? Let's turn off the clock for this one. John, have at it.
Man, I'm trying to keep it together and not completely fall off the ledge here, but I don't think it's an overreaction to say the Sunday is a must-win for the Bears against the Bucs. If they lose, they're 0-2 heading into week 3 when they travel to Kansas City, who presumably will be with Travis Kelce and will probably beat the Bears. Therefore, if you start the season 0-3, you can only imagine what the conversations are going to be surrounding this team because that would be a worse start than last year's team. You know, the team that was so bad they got the number 1 overall pick. That team was actually 2-1 after 3 games. And I know this is kind of apples and oranges, but if you start this season 0-3 after paying all that money in free agency, after bringing in DJ Moore, after adding to the offensive and defensive lines, you are not going to get a fraction of the amount of patience that Bears fans showed last year, myself included. This team doesn't have the luxury of taking any game lightly, so someone better show up on Sunday ready to make a statement and push off some of those looming conversations around Hallis Hall. That'll do it for B55. After this message, we'll preview the Tampa Bay Bucs and talk with Danny Shimon, the Ballroom's lead analyst.
The fall is where we rock here at the Barroom Network with over 15 shows scheduled from September to January. Make sure you subscribe to the Barroom Network's YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Bears fans, this is Michael Pless of Real Bucs Talk. You can catch my work and also Mark Ramirez, my co-host, at Real Bucs Talk on Twitter and also on YouTube at Real Bucs Talk.
Welcome back to Buffone 55. The Bears have to travel to Florida this weekend for their Sunday matchup against the Bucs. Aldo Gandia previews that Tampa Bay team.
Mayfield, quick pass. Godwin, did he hang on? He did!
The Tampa Bay Bucs went to hostile U.S. Bank Stadium and held on to beat the Minnesota Vikings.
So they had a lot of complimentary football. Obviously, the offense struggled in the first half, but defense came up big with turnovers, and they found a way to win.
The way to win was led by linebackers Devin White and Levante David.
Both of them played all over the field. If it wasn't one, it was the other one. They did a good job finding the hider and the bootlegs, and they did a good job cleaning up plays that the D-line set up for them. They did a good job flying around, period. And, both of them had double-digit tackles. Both of them were all over the place. I thought, they really showed their leadership.
Bucs coach Todd Bowles had another ace on his defense Sunday, defensive back Antoine Winfield Jr.
Winfield did a lot of things that Winfield does. He got tackles, he got sacks, he caused fumbles, he recovered fumbles, he got PBUs. Very good tackler in space, very good cover guy in space. Like I said, him, Devin, and Levante, probably the fastest three guys on the field on our side of the ball. And they played like superstars, and, they practiced like that, so they played like that.
Vita Vea's presence in the middle of the defensive line and rookie 3-tech Kalijah Kancey could become a handful for the Bears' offensive line.
Vita, is going to be just the powerful force that he is in the middle and had a really good game on Sunday. Kalijah Kancey played only like 11 snaps because they wanted to keep precaution for him because that calf tightened up on him. But when he was in there, he did a great job. I mean, he showed pressure. He did all the things you want from a 3-tech, getting up the field and causing disruptions.
Kalijah Kancey, the first-round pick out of Pittsburgh. 3rd and 8 to the sideline. Broken up. What a play by Davis.
Big, fast corners that can make plays all over the field. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, and then the real underrated player that's come out of nowhere has been Christian Izien, the undrafted rookie out of Rutgers. Had an amazing interception on Sunday to take away points from Minnesota.
On offense, the Bucs have gone from Brady to Baker Mayfield, who is on his 4th team since being drafted 1st overall in the 2018 draft.
There's still things that, he just doesn't have in his game, so he still misses things over the middle of the field, takes some unnecessary sacks. But for Sunday, he did a great job of just protecting the football, staying within the system, and leading the team. And I think the team has definitely rallied around him, and they're all in with Baker Mayfield.
He's a quarterback with an offensive lineman mentality. Now, you don't want your quarterback doing it too much, but, he'll make the yards when he has to make the yards when the game is on the line. He plays very smart. That doesn't mean he's a renegade by any means. It just means that he's willing to go the extra mile to put his face in the fan when the situation calls for it, and hopefully he doesn't have to do that too much where he can get banged up. But offensive linemen feed off of that, and then he becomes one of them, and, it's a rallying cry for the offense.
The Bucs redid their offensive line and now run a wide run zone blocking scheme. Their pass protection held against the heavy blitzing Vikings and allowed only 1 sack.
Overall, I thought they did very well. They protected Baker Mayfield, gave him time to throw. So I know a lot of people going into the season thought that was going to be the biggest question mark, but they did a pretty solid job overall.
The Bucs had 33 rushing attempts, 8 of them from Mayfield, and Coach Bowles wasn't worried that they only averaged 2.2 yards per carry.
I thought they were tough runs, considering the fronts they were playing and trying to take away, and they kind of had an extra guy every time. the run doesn't always have to be pretty. You know, if you can get 33 runs in, it keeps the defense off the field some, it keeps them out there longer, it keeps them honest, and keeps them off of Baker some. So it has a double fold. You know, the amount of carries are just as important as the yardage, if not more important. So if we can stay with that and kind of stay balanced, it kind of keeps everybody in the game.
Rachaad White could have got more yards. There was open holes, he just missed them. So there was a lot of missed opportunities on his part as far as finding the lanes. So he's got some work to do to get better.
At wide receiver, star player Mike Evans caught 6 of his 10 targets and scored a touchdown. Chris Godwin had 5 catches for 66 yards. No other player on the team had more than 2 catches. Tampa's special teams drew praise from Bowles.
It's huge. It was real big because we had a lot of young guys out there, you know, playing for the first time. It's kind of the puppy pound. You're getting out there, running down. You know they're going to make their mistakes, but you know they're going to make them full speed. I thought they showed good composure. I thought they ran and made some plays.
But their gunners right now is Zion McCollum. He's a second-year corner, and then they have a rookie corner, Josh Hayes, as the other gunner. So there could be opportunities for some returns. They were solid against Minnesota. That's due large part to Jake Camarda, the second-year punter out of Georgia. He was outstanding on Sunday. I think he averaged about 58 yards per kick.
And for the most part, the kickers did an outstanding job, so that helped us win the ball.
Sunday's temperatures are expected to approach 100 degrees on the field, something neither team desires.
It's brutal for both teams because it's so intense. It's a heat that just keeps, bearing down on you. So I don't think it gives any other team, a certain advantage.
Whatever the temperatures are at Raymond James Stadium, it's going to be the heat that Todd Bowles' defense is going to bring up against the Bears' offensive line and Justin Fields that's probably going to determine this game. Aldo Gandia for Buffone 55.
Thank you to Aldo Gandia for that great preview of the upcoming opponent for the Bears. It's going to be a hot one. Let's bring the heat on right now. Let's bring on the Bears lead analyst, Danny Shimon. Danny, welcome to Buffone 55. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, but after watching that preview, I'm a little more scared now than I was going into this game.
Yeah. I'm not hopeful now. I wanted to be, but I'm not. So, Danny, I'll start you off with this. Are you over the Green Bay game yet? And what are now that you had few days to let it kind of marinate, what are your lasting impressions of that?
No, it still hurts. It still sucks. As a fan, lifelong fan of the Bears, it was like there was so much anticipation. You were just looking forward to seeing this team kind of take the next step. Not that they're going to contend for Super Bowl, but they're going to come out and be competitive. And if you're going to beat Green Bay this time around with their top offensive weapon out, with Christian Watson, their third-year quarterback making his first career opening, weekend start. I don't know how you're going to beat them, but they just came out flat. And I had to put on my analyst hat, and we watched that game, believe it or not, and it was as painful watching again the second time around as it was watching it live on TV. So just way too many mistakes. The offensive line looked like it wasn't prepared. It looked like they were annoying. They weren't sure what their assignments were. Just mistakes after mistakes. The offensive line, defensive line. Justin had some opportunities down the football field. Didn't take advantage of those as well. So and the fact that they had all off season to prepare for the Packers, to play the Packers, and they just came out flat and it put that on the football field, really was disappointing.
Yeah, so I was hoping that you were going to be like, oh, it's not the tape isn't as bad as what you thought it was, but apparently it's just as bad.
The good news is it's just one game. That's the good news.
The bad news is it looks the exact same that we saw last year with these improved players they were supposed to be bringing in. So, okay, let's start breaking down this team and what we're moving forward. Alyssa, I'm going to ask you this, and then Danny jump in. Let's start with something we haven't really talked about yet: the running game for the Chicago Bears. Khalil Herbert, Deontay Foreman, and then Roschon Johnson got some play in the back. The only positive thing I really took out of this was when Roschon Johnson leveled a defender with the ball. So Alyssa, if you're running the running backs room or you're the offensive coordinator, are you giving Roschon Johnson an increased role this week because of just that, little bolster that he did coming off the bench, or how you splitting up the carries? You're muted just like the Bears are.
Oh man, see, I blame the Packers. I'm just gonna blame the Packers. But short answer is yes. I would definitely give Roshan more carries. He led the Bears running backs with carries, but that's again because they put him in there towards the end of the game. But he looked like one of the few players that actually wanted to be out on the field for the Bears. And even when they were getting their ass kicked, like he made it exciting for a little bit, right? And then you're like, oh wait, we're still getting our ass kicked by the Packers. But I mean, I feel like there's no reason why, even despite them bringing him at the end of the game, why he shouldn't be a part of the game plan moving forward. I mean, I just feel like he's the most complete back of the three that they have. And I mean, you see it whether it's his rushing ability or his pass catching ability or pass protection, which is something that Justin Fields needs. You need to make sure that he has more time to throw the ball. So I feel like even on the show we talked about, we think he's going to be the lead back at some point this season. It's just a question of when. And I mean, I don't know if week 2 is going to be that, but I definitely think we're going to see the start of that this week against Tampa.
Yeah, Danny, I mean, do you want to try to capitalize on Johnson being a naive rookie? Maybe he has some of that energy you can throw in there and just say, make something happen, kid, and see what you got. Or do you really want to see if Khalil Herbert can turn into that every down back despite some of his shortcomings?
Well, with this defensive front, obviously, they touch on that preview with big, Vita Vea, 350 pounds of mass humanity in the middle of that defensive line. It's going to be hard for a runner like say, Deontay Foreman to be able to he's more of a downhill physical runner in between the tackles. You're going to need runners like Khalil Herbert and like Rashawn Johnson. They can bounce a run to the outside, possibly with a little more elusiveness, a little more speed. So I think Khalil will start, being the veteran he is. And I think you're going to see Rashawn Johnson sprinkled in more. Going over the game tape, and Alyssa kind of alluded to it, we all thought he came in towards the end of the game, but actually he was sprinkled in throughout the game. He was actually lined up as a receiver, as a slot receiver. He was lined up as a fullback sometimes, as an off-back as well. So he was throughout the game. He was in there. Just, his impact happened more when he had that big run where he ran over Rudy Ford. And then obviously where he caught some balls from the backfield, and also then scored his first career touchdown. So I think slowly but surely you're going to see Johnson kind of creep up more in terms of his carries, because he can do more. You could probably play Herbert and Johnson at the same time, like I talked about earlier. You can line them up as a receiver, so on and so forth. So, and he actually blocked out of the receiver slot position. He actually blocked. Actually put effort. And not like Mr.
I was going to say, who are you alluding to there, Danny?
Yeah,
who didn't block?
Claypool, who was pouting because he was probably he didn't want to feel like blocking or something like that. That was still, that is just a disgrace in terms of, you're an professional NFL football player, and that's what you put on tape. So it's, and the fact that Eberflus talked about possibly, and making him inactive this week. Do it, because even though you need him out there in terms of his size and speed, ratio, his ability to kind of maybe go one-on-one, make a play, but man, you cannot go out there and put that kind of effort. Not just one play; it was multiple plays. And with the multiple plays, whenever I watch the tape, whenever he was asked to block, whether it was a down block or block outside on those swing, quick routes, he had no desire whatsoever to go out there and make a play.
And that you hear about Equanimeous St. Brown's ability to block, and if they want that, if that's what they need, or that's what they feel like they need to put into the scheme, could we see Claypool go inactive and then bring St. Brown back into the lineup?
Yeah, the thing about St. Brown, he is a good blocker, but unfortunately, he's not that great of a receiver. So that's a little give and take there. So he does give you better effort, no doubt about it, in terms of being a blocker, especially up at the line of scrimmage. So you can definitely use him there. But I would like to see the rookie Tyler Scott get more involved. This is going to be a front that's going to be very aggressive, very physical. Justin's going to have to get rid of that football real quick, and a lot of these quick hitting plays with quick moving receivers, whether it's the backside of the backfield or Mooney or a Tyler Scott or even DJ Moore, you got to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and because if not, he's going to get annihilated back there.
Let's stick with the offense before we switch over to the enigma that is the defense. But after the game, when we were talking on Bear Football, Danny, you said you were afraid to see what this Todd Bowles defense could potentially do to the Bears offense. So I'm going to kick it to you first, and then Alyssa will have you chime in. But what can we expect from an offensive performance against a Todd Bowles defense that is not going to be is not going to care if the Bears can't get it together?
Well, let's cover your ears, right? So this is a physical, This is a physical, multifaceted defense. This is the defense that's going to bring, they're going to disguise their coverages. They're going to disguise what they're doing up front. You'll see at times they'll line up with 7 guys at the line of scrimmage, drop back 3, only bring 4, and vice versa. They'll blitz you from all 3 levels of the defense. You'll see Antoine Winfield Jr. come as a blitz. You'll see, Devin White. You'll see Alante David come as a blitzer. You'll see a corner, a nickel corner come as a blitzer. So, you have to be, in terms of your assignments, you have to be sound in terms of your protections. Justin, you're going to have to identify and make sure your protections are lined up, or at least very well know who's going to be coming free, who's possibly going to be dropping back in coverage, because they will do everything they can to disguise what they're doing. And when they come hard and they hit you hard. Physical, aggressive defensive front for sure.
So, Alyssa, how how positive are you that they're going to right the ship offensively since they gave you so much to go off of last week? How do you think that they're going to turn the ship around today, or I should say Sunday?
Well, if I had any optimism, like during the Buccaneers preview, like Danny said, he was watching Bucs tape, and then he's like, Justin will die on Sunday. So like, I'm not feeling any better. I am actually more terrified. I mean, this is a really talented Buccaneers defense, and they're going to give the Bears offense a lot of the same issues that they had against Green Bay. And it's just, I have no faith in Luke Getsy and this offensive or this coaching staff to right the ship, especially that quickly. I just feel like, I think we'll see some changes, but I think it's going to be the same result. They're going to have to prove it to me. I mean, it's just, and Danny didn't help. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, so I'm gonna do what you said, Danny. I'm gonna cover my eyes. Well, actually, I really can't do that when I'm watching the game. I have to. We all have to, guys.
We all have to watch the game.
We have to watch. But yeah, I'm not encouraged. This is a really talented Buccaneers defense, and I think Justin Fields is in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I think they said they want to get more vertical this week, take some more chances down the field. But I mean, you're gonna have some time to do that, and I don't know how much time he's going to have back there this week. So let's turn to something a little more uplifting. The Bears defense, Matt Eberflus's bread and butter. Why he was, he was brought in because of his ability to run a defense, and then
this defense sucks.
Love that drop so much. And as much as I don't want to have to use it because I don't want the defense to suck, it sucks. It was bad. And so, Danny, we talked about this. They don't blitz. They can't get pressure with the front 4. They're expecting their secondary to cover guys for 15 minutes, and it just gets frustrating because you're seeing that same thing over and over again. As I said in the last segment, it's a vanilla creamery that doesn't get vanilla right, and so it's why won't they blitz, or why won't Matt Eberflus take over, or what? Why? I guess I just want to know why. And oh my God, I'm asking for the whys. I'm doing it to myself now.
Oh no.
That's a question I've been asking for going back to end of last year. I mean, like, why aren't they doing anything differently just to change things up? Like you would see other teams, like for example, watch the Jets on Monday night. They play a 4-3. They play a lot of zone. The Bucs play a lot of zone, but they're a 3-4, mainly a 3-4 team. But you know what you do is you change up and you bring guys to bring extra pressure. And the Jets have a great defensive line, and they're bringing blitzers and all that stuff all over the place as well. So I don't know why they won't blitz. This is why I'm a big proponent of you build your team from the offense and defensive lines. Now they invested 2 draft picks on the defensive front, which is good. I like both those kids, but they have to take some time to develop. In the meantime, you want to pay big money for a linebacker, 2 linebackers, and which I think you should have invested that money into your defensive line in terms of free agency and all that stuff. But that's another discussion for another day. But in terms of why they won't blitz, Eberflus touched on it. Today's like, we might change things around a little bit, but I'm telling you, like Jordan Love had no pressure. There were a couple of times I'm watching the tape where, Billings, pushed the center right back into his lap a little bit, but he was able to get rid of the football. Obviously, Ngakoue had that coverage sack, but other than that, there really wasn't much pressure to Jordan Love. And he had at one time there was like 7-8 seconds back there in the pocket to find a receiver, and he was sure enough able to do that. So that's something that they need to worry about there. Then the defensive, the coverage in the backfield was just some blown assignments. up front, they played some TE stunts, tackle end stunts, but it just looked like the timing was off where, that the tackle didn't step out far enough into the C gap to be able to protect that lane there. And then sometimes they were both the end and the tackle were almost in the same gap. And now you have a huge rush lane for guys like Aaron Jones and other players to run through. So it was just dysfunctional. Both lines looked like they were just out of sync. Something that you could have probably cleaned up, where in the preseason, if you had played your starters more often.
There's a whole other conversation, but as Alyssa, as Danny alluded to, they spent some big money on the linebackers this year with Edmonds and Edwards, and they spent draft capital on the defensive line. They have a high round. They got Tyreek Stevenson, high round draft pick in the secondary. So one would assume that because they brought in more talent on the defensive side of the ball, that they would be better defensively. However, they're not. So is this an indictment on the coaching staff that and I think this is kind of a question that we saw in the chat room from Luke, the fact that they refuse to adjust their defensive scheme, is that not an evidence that they are not good at coaching defense? Isn't this a pretty big indictment on the coaching staff that you can spend all this money on the defense and you're getting the same, if not worse, results?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the coaching staff, but also, we forget that how many of these starters on defense and offense were injured, right, during training camp and the preseason. Like with the offense, I feel like they could have had a little bit more of those preseason reps, but I mean, most of these defensive guys that were out, even like Jaquan Brisker, right, he didn't even play in the preseason at all. So I feel like, they haven't even been on the field together until this first game on defense. So I mean, you could hopefully it's a little rust, but also it does come down to the coaching staff. Again, this is Alan Williams, not a first-time play caller anymore, and his refusal to adjust. And again, when the game was within reach, when you could still win. And Danny said, like, Jordan Love had 8 seconds back there. I mean, my goodness, Justin Fields would have been sacked 3 times in that same span. So, I mean, it's ridiculous, and it needs to change because, Baker Mayfield, he's not a world beater, but he was very efficient for the Bucs in week 1, stood back there, had some nice protection, and was able to lead them to a win against the Vikings. So, I mean, he's not going to be like a Patrick Mahomes, which the Bears have to face in a couple weeks, but he can get the job done. So you have to find a way to bring pressure on Baker Mayfield, or he's going to make you pay with a better receiving cast, unlike what the Packers had on last Sunday.
Right, with Godwin and Evans there. And Danny, I mean, if you give any capable NFL quarterback the amount of time that Jordan Love had, they're going to find the open guy at some point. These are top professional quarterbacks. They're going to eventually, if they go through the progressions, they're going to find somebody if they have all day to throw it. And instead of going after an inexperienced quarterback who you wanted to see if he could handle pressure, if he could handle the heat in his face, if he could handle guys flying around him, if he could make the right decision or make an accurate throw under pressure, they basically just said, okay, we're gonna rush these 4 guys, and they're not gonna get home. So hopefully something good happens, and obviously nothing good happened. So what can we expect against Baker Mayfield, who Alyssa alluded to is not the top tier quarterback, but if you give him 8 seconds to throw the ball, he's gonna find one of those guys running a deep route or open through the middle of that zone, which we've seen is a big liability.
Right. So, but the good news here is it is Baker Mayfield. He is a guy that, even though they pulled out a win, last week, he is a guy who will give you opportunities to make a play on a football. Meaning he'll throw the ball up there. So if you're a defensive back, keep your eye out. You can be able to jump routes and pick him off because he'll throw the ball in coverage as well. So even watching him versus Minnesota, there are times where he just threw the ball up there, and there are opportunities for the defenders to make plays on football. So that's a good news there. And in terms of pressuring him, for him, he's a shorter quarterback. The thing with shorter quarterbacks is get that pressure up in his face. So the defensive tackles got to be able to collapse that pocket, get that offensive line kind of retreating back into his face. Now you're pressuring him. Now he's going to be able to have to escape, and that's where guys like and Ngakoue and DeMarcus Walker, God bless him. He's the only one that actually shows some heart really in that game on Sunday. But unfortunately, both those guys do not set a hard edge in terms of as a run defense. So that's the one thing they can do. They got to stop the run first, get better as a run defender, and now get after the quarterback. And now what I would do is I'd bring in Khalid Kareem, the guy that picked up from the Colts, give him a shot. It can't be any worse. Dominic Robinson, 5th round pick last year, converted receiver / quarterback, different positions, still learning, still young. I don't know, other than being a 5th round pick, I'm not sure why he's getting, snaps. So hopefully they bring in this guy they picked up from the Colts, Kareem, and see what he can do. I mean, it can't be any worse, right? So you got to, mix things in and out. The one thing I did like when they did last year with the defensive line, or I'm sorry, last week with the defensive line, was they kicked DeMarcus Walker inside, brought some more speed on the edges. So maybe there's an opportunity there for Kareem to come out and play defensive end and rush on pass rush situations. But again, with Mayfield, get in his face, collapse the pocket from the middle. So guys like Billings and Justin Jones, and then obviously the rookies got to be able to kind of push those guys back. The good thing, another good news here is the Bucs offensive line. It's a little bit of in transition. It's not as good as the Packers offensive line. They have a pretty good left tackle and Tristan Wirfs, who was a right tackle, switch over to the left side. He's a Pro Bowl caliber player. So whoever's going up against him, whether it's Ngakoue or if it's a Walker, they're not probably going to get close to Mayfield. So I'm just saying, in the middle of the defensive line is where you generate that push and collapse everything from the middle in on Mayfield, and then he'll probably give the ball up, throw it up in coverage, and now defensive backs make a play on the football. So there is some good news there in terms of how they can take advantage of Baker Mayfield. But first, you got to stop the run. They don't have any, dynamic running backs like an Aaron Jones. Rashard White is a physical in between the tackles kind of runner. Sean Tucker is an undrafted free agent. So they have guys that can bang it inside, but not really guys that have dynamic, big play potential like an Aaron Jones. So that's the good news. Stop the run and now make Baker Mayfield beat you and then try and collapse the pocket on him.
So let's go. We've already kind of talked about this, but we didn't really ask the question. So let's go to a question from Tony Moy in the chat room, which says, "Will Flus bench Claypool for his lack of effort, and will Johnson start as RB1?" We already talked about Roschon Johnson. We think he's going to be more involved. But Alyssa, I want to start with you. Do you think they actually have the gusto to say we're sitting you down? Because this, once again, that's an indictment on the organization saying we traded basically the 32nd overall pick for this guy, and now we're benching him. Do you think they would actually do it?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, I don't have confidence in this coaching staff, but if you're going to make a move and you're going to set an example for the locker room that this kind of performance and effort is not going to be tolerated, you need to do it now. The fact that Eberflus had to pull Claypool aside and have that discussion, I mean, it needs to happen. Put players on the field who want to play. It's as simple as that. Yes, you traded a 32nd overall pick. You're going to have to eat that. I mean, it happened. You can't do it, but you can focus on the now. Make him sit a game. Make him think about what he did, and watch players out there who actually want to compete and want to play and go out and make plays. I mean, Equanimeous St. Brown, he's not a Chase Claypool like receiver, but he's a good blocker. He puts the effort in. Why not give guys like that an opportunity? Is all I have to say. I mean, this would be the time to do it. You can't. I mean, if you want to put him out there and give him a chance this week, but then you get the same effort. I mean, I feel like it's going to backfire. But I feel like if there is an opportunity to do it, you do it now, this week against the Bucs.
Danny, do you think they would actually sit him down?
Should they? Yes.
No,
they should have benched him.
Pretty
that second half of that last week's game and had him sitting right next to Eberflus on the sideline watch that football game. But will they? I don't think they will. No, because of the investment they put in him, they want to get and he is a threat when he's the combination of size, speed, catch radius. He's a guy. And there were a couple times where in fairness to Claypool, there were a couple times watching the tape. And about 7 or 8 throws where Justin just didn't pull the trigger, and a couple of them were to Claypool where he was coming off on a hitch or a real quick core route, and he was open down the field, and then just the ball wasn't thrown his way. So that was something there that he is a weapon on the outside. So they talked about today, just talked about, if he's one-on-one on the outside, you guys throw it up there, let him go up and make a play. So he gives you that opportunity. So I don't think they're going to bench him, but I think they should bench him. Yes.
And if I'm Chase Claypool, he's in a contract year.
Yep.
This is the kind of tape you want to put out for even if you're done with Chicago, even if you say, I'm not coming back here. I don't care what they offer me. I don't like it here. I don't like the coaching staff. I'm not coming back. You're playing for another contract and potentially the last big contract you could get unless you sign a series of 1-year deals, which might be what's in his future. But if you're trying to get paid next year and you want to put something on tape that teams are looking at, like, okay, if this guy doesn't get involved or doesn't get the ball as much as he wants, he's not going to block, he's going to pout, and he's going to be an issue where the coaches have to sit him down, or they have to have a one-on-one talk about, hey, you're a professional, you need to play football a little bit better, or at least take this a little more seriously. Who's going to be like, oh yeah, 5-year deal over here, come on over? Like, even if you are just fed up with the team you're playing for yourself. You're playing to get yourself paid. You're trying to put something on tape where a team is going to give you a long-term contract with some financial security behind it. But if you're going to do this, then okay, then you're going to sit down. You're going to get a 1-year, $5 million deal next year, a 1-year, $9 million deal next year, whatever it is, because someone's not going to be like, we're not giving this guy multiple years. Look how he acted in Chicago.
It's one thing if you're overmatched physically, or Eberflus talked about when he was defending him today about technique, that his technique was bad. But yes, that was effort. There was no effort there whatsoever. It's one thing if you're overmatched physically, or you can't, you're just not strong enough. But it's like he didn't even give an effort, like he didn't give a damn because he knew the ball wasn't coming his way. He's like, I'm not going to be out here blocking. So it was just embarrassing. The fact that you watch it live, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and then go back and rewatching the tape again. It's like it's really damning. Like you said, John, he's putting this out on tape for all the other teams to watch as well. So good luck trying to get that long-term contract secured next year.
And to Luke's point in the chat, he said his play was specifically brought up on a national media stage, which is true. A lot of people from national media are tweeting out his video. It's not like you can just hide in the video or the people aren't going to have your stuff on tape and they're not going to tweet it out anymore. I mean, that's you're out there no matter what. If you're out there, you're getting scrutinized. So you want to put out some good tape. Let's move to
one quick note for Ryan Poles. Just a note for Ryan Poles. Don't ever trade for a receiver from the Pittsburgh Steelers, because if they get rid of a receiver, he means he sucks.
Yeah, and they're really good at selling guys off when they're at their highest, and getting as much back from them. I mean, they've done it before. I mean, before all the Antonio Brown stuff, they did it with Mike Wallace, and they did it with Emmanuel Sanders. They know when to move on from a guy, and they know how. The thing, what the difference is, Danny? They know how to draft receivers. They know how they know how to restock the receivers, because if there's for every Mike Wallace, there's an Emmanuel Sanders, there's an Antonio Brown, there's Juju Smith-Schuster, there's George Pickens, there is a Deontay Johnson. Like they just know how to restock their receivers. The Bears don't. So that's the difference. Whenever you can move on from a guy, you don't have to get desperate and give up a big draft pick for a guy that you hope hits. That's the difference between a stable organization and a franchise that consistently is just grasping for straws. But that's an entirely different, fundamental conversation down the road that I'm sure we're going to have. But let's get our crystal ball out here a little bit and just say, let's just get magical. Let's go full out Narnia here. If you had a magic wand and you could say, I'm going to fix one thing for the Bears this week. I'm going to fix one thing, whether it's offensive line, defensive line, quarterbacking, coaching, running back. If you had one freebie and you have a magic wand in your hand, you're going full Harry Potter. I don't know how many these fantasy movies I can name here, but if you could fix one thing, what are you fixing? I'm putting you guys on the spot. Danny, I'm starting with you.
I'm not sure if I can fix the offensive line, defensive line, other than just coaching them up and just making sure that they play better. But in terms
it's magic, Danny. You can fix it. It's fixed. You wave your wand and it's fixed. What's the one thing you're fixing?
I would love to be able to fix the offensive line, but in reality, I think what you do this week to win the game, I think you have to kind of go back and start running Justin against. I think there was only one designed quarterback run last week. You're gonna have to go back and run them, 7-8 times again, just to get away from that pressure, do more rollouts and all that stuff, just to kind of get them away from that congestion in the middle of the offensive line and kind of break things down like we did against New England, against basically the second half last season. So I think that's what you have to do for this game to try and get a victory and put some points on the board. But that's what I would recommend.
Magic wand, Alyssa, what are you fixing?
I mean, I know Danny already said it, but yeah, it's definitely the offensive line. I mean, it's just brutal. And also staying kind of more realistic is utilizing more of those design quarterback runs, because you want to get Justin Fields comfortable, and that's when he's looked comfortable, because he knows he does not feel comfortable in the pocket. Do not force him to be a pocket passer. Utilize his strengths. So maybe I want to fix the play calling too. I mean, I'm like cutting corners here. Can I say fix the trenches in general? Can I just like wave the magic wand?
Those are two things right there. Don't get greedy with your magic wand. You get one thing.
Man.
Because we know both sides of we know both lines need help. That's why I was gonna say defensive line, because we know Alan Williams is not going to change the scheme. So I want the front four to get as much pressure as possible. So because if the front four gets pressure, then maybe they're not going to just have all day to pick apart that pretty bland defense. So I'll say the defensive line, although we know the offensive line needs it, the offensive play calling needs it. There's a lot of things that need adjusting, and it's just week 2, which is really sad to think about.
Can we do that schedule prediction?
No. We've said it. It's in the air. It's staying.
It's out there. I feel embarrassed now.
I think what we can do is we can come back in the middle of the season and see how stupid we currently look, and then
I had a losing record.
Readjust the last 8 to 9 games, because now that there's 17 games, there's no midway point. We're just it's whenever there's 8 or 9 games left, we may revisit this and see where they're going to stand, because I do want to bring this up to both of you. Is this kind of a must-win game? Because I said it in the last segment, where if they lose this one, there's a pretty good chance they could lose to Kansas City. There's no guarantee they'd beat Denver, and then you're going on Thursday night in Washington after that. But if you start this season 0-3, and I'm not saying they're going to, but there is a real chance that could happen. They could lose to Tampa, and they could lose to Kansas City, and then you're 0-3 in a year where you're supposed to have tangible progress. You're supposed to say, we got better. Look at the wins. Look at the results. The quarterback's playing better. The offense is better. The defense has taken strides with this $100 million we sunk into it. And if you're 0-3, you know what kind of conversations are going to start coming up.
Yep.
So, Danny, is this kind of a must-win from just a put out the fire standpoint?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it real quick after the post game. Like, if you don't win here, you're 0-2. You're going to go to Kansas City. You're going to be 0-3. I'm just going to call it right now. You're 0-3. Now I talk about Denver, and God knows what that's going to look like, right? In terms of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, what they can do to you. If you go 0-3, 0-4, start the season off. Now the seat gets hotter. Under someone's going to lose his job. I don't know if Alan Williams gets demoted or cut or just fired, or someone's going to have to, there's going to be some heads rolling now if you start off 0-4 in the season. So I know expectations aren't high. They're not like Super Bowl, predictions and all that stuff, but still you want to see some tangible improvement here, and to come out of the gates 0-4 when you have a favorable schedule. At the very least, I thought they'd go 2-2 at the worst, starting off, coming out of the gates here. But 0-4, I think that now you're going to start hearing, firings or possible firings, and all of a sudden the seat's going to get hot under the whole entire coaching staff.
Alyssa, they have lost 11 games in a row. Their last win was in last October, that Monday night game against New England. We're coming up on 11 months and almost a year. And again, if they lose this week, we're going to be pushing a year since we have reacted to a Bears victory. A year that we're talking about. And so is this not kind of a must win? Because right now you're at 11 in a row. You lose 12 in a row. You could lose 13 in a row. Okay. Something has to change then, because I don't care if you were dealt a bad roster or you were, you had a lack of talent, first year play caller. All those excuses are over now, because you sunk some money into it. And even if you're a really good coach, you can scheme a few wins against bad teams, and they haven't been able to do that yet. So we're talking about 11 months since we talked about a Bears victory. This is eventually every week's going to have some scrutiny behind it, right? I mean, even more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, my goodness. Has it really almost been a year? I mean, that would be something new for us to talk about, but I really don't want to have that conversation. But, yeah, I do think it is a must win because, when we looked at, the Bears and their 10-game losing streak last season, Eberflus kept his team fighting, right? But now if that turns into, 0-2, 0-3, 0-4 against the Broncos, that's, 14 straight losses? Like, how do you get your team motivated to it just feels like this is a pivotal moment. This is a winnable game. Yes, the Buccaneers have a really talented defense. They have a lot of key veteran players on that squad, but this is also an opportunity for you to go out there and avenge that, whatever the hell that was on the field last week. and come out with a win. I feel like you have to, because like Danny said, the Chiefs game, that's a loss with or without Travis Kelce. That's a loss. This is a winnable game. You need to go out there and win it. You need to make a statement, because otherwise I'm going to be starting my hot seat articles again. Like, I haven't done one of those since Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. My goodness. See, look, I'm already getting the names mixed up.
Yeah,
we
Matt.
really should have known, Ryan and Matt.
Yeah. Well, I feel like they need to update the handbook at Hallis Hall for press conferences for coach, because Eberflus is starting to dig into those Nagyisms that we saw whenever he was a guy. Go back and look at the tape, and it's like, okay, you should know if you're in tune with this franchise, what's going to play and what's not to the fan base. And by saying every time you got to go back and look at the tape, there's a little bit of heartburn resonating from. We heard a lot of that before. If we start hearing about how good guys practice the week before, or we start hearing about we got to figure out why this is happening, or we got to do the whys. Okay, you're digging into that. I don't really have an answer handbook there. Now it's just like, I don't want to say we got our ass kicked and we got out coached, so I got to go look at the tape.
The one damning thing about today, Eberflus's conference, I don't know if you guys have it or saw it, if Aldo has it back there, is they asked them, a reporter asked them, and we brought it up, John, after the game, on that, when they got into first and goal, and they pulled those back-to-backs to DJ Moore, and they pulled DJ Moore, and I said, why is DJ Moore not in the game? They asked Eberflus. He said, I don't know. Yeah. You're the head coach of the football team. I know Getsy's got he runs the offense and all that stuff, but damn it, you're the head coach of the football team. You should look out there and say, hey, DJ Moore is not on the football field. We're first and goal. Why not? Don't come to me and tell me, I don't know why he wasn't in the game. Everything, the buck stops with you as a head football coach. You need to know why your quote unquote best receiver is not in a football game on first and goal.
Danny, if he's not play calling on defense and he's surely not involved with the offense, I assume he's doing something, right? So like he should
guests down to the field. I have no idea.
Like what he has to be aware of personnel. Like he's watching the game, observing the flow of the game. And if it's first and goals, why the hell isn't DJ Moore out there? I'm getting Luke Getsy. I'm hey, why isn't 2 out there? Right. What are you doing?
Because those walkie-talkies, they talk to all the coaching staff. He can talk in that headset and be like, hey, where's DJ Moore? Why isn't Moore out there? Is he hurt? And he'd get the answer. So he doesn't go up to a press conference 3 days after a humiliating loss and be like, I don't know.
Let's go to the question from Michael Pless. Says, looking at the Bears' defensive personnel, shouldn't they play a more aggressive given their front and secondary? Cover 2 looks to be tough for them. Yeah, Michael, it is.
We've been asking for that, Michael.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're new in here, so I'm gonna give you a break, but absolutely, yes, 100%. But they won't. They won't, because they're committed to this. I don't know, keeping everything in front of you, everyone just wreck the middle of the field there. So I even from the outside, it's very obvious what the Bears should be doing, but they're not going to.
You know what I was thinking today, guys? Let's see if you guys find this funny. But I'm thinking, like, what is Rod Marinelli doing right now? Could he be brought in as an advisor, just to kind of give Alan Williams a sense of how to freaking call a defense? I mean, this is his defense, and when he took over. With Bears back then, obviously had that more talent, but I mean, he became aggressive. You saw blitzes from the linebackers, you saw blitzes from the cornerbacks. Maybe we can bring in Rod Marinelli as an advisor. Something.
I'm here for that.
This is as bad as like we're talking about bringing an advisor. It's like, remember Nathaniel Hackett had to have an assistant coach brought in like after week 1 because he couldn't read the clock. Like that's kind of where we're
if
at.
You go 14 losses in a row, you're reaching Nathaniel Hackett level, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. But I'm just saying that's disheartening that you're going to have to bring in an advisor after one game. But in the grand scheme of things, you've lost 11 in a row. So something needs to change. It didn't change the coaching staff, and they brought in new players, and they're doing the same results. So where's the indictment really falling at now? It should be on the coaching staff. Okay, let's go back to if you could, or no, let's just say pick one player this week. I know this is going to be incredibly difficult. What player needs to step up this week? If you could pick one player to rise up to the occasion and play better, who are you picking? And I'll start. Danny, I'm putting you on the spot again.
For me, it's got to be the best player on the team. It's got to be Justin Fields. I mean, there are like 7 or 8, like I said earlier, 7 or 8 throws where he just didn't pull a trigger. He had big chunk plays available down the football field. And for whatever reason, it just, to me, guys, it seems like he's being coached to not throw interceptions, and also he doesn't trust his offensive line. Anytime he sees the opposing team's color, whether it's a helmet or the jerseys, kind of flash in front of him or into his peripheral vision, he's taking his eyes off the progression, and he's trying to move around and buy some time or tuck it and run. There are, like I said, 7 or 8 throws where he could have, made, big plays down a football field. He either decided to, tuck it and run, or he just, dumped it off to the side. He talked about today he was conservative. And that to me is just, that's the way he was being coached. I feel like that's, what they told, like, don't throw interceptions, just, kind of check down. And I've been harping, let's see him kind of, take what the defense gives you. That's awesome. That's great. I do like that. But when opportunity is given, especially when they have big chunk plays and the receiver is open, you got to be able to hit those throws, Justin. And I think that's my hope, is that he just kind of gets better in terms of, his anticipation with these receivers, working more with these receivers over time. And those players are going to be there for him to make, because the throws were there. It's just he didn't pull the trigger on them.
Alyssa, who do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with Justin Fields. So maybe I'll take a different route. I mean, Chase Claypool, if only because
That's
I really
fair.
don't want this trade to be a complete disaster. Like, come out if he's active, if Matt Eberflus, which I think will happen, he's going to be active. But like, show that you want to be out there. Show that you heard that message loud and clear. Act like you're in a contract here. Go out and contribute. If you want the ball, go out there and play. Like, do what your job is. You know how many people would be lucky to be in your position? Players in college that didn't make the NFL, they would kill to be in your shoes. Like, just go out there and show that you heard Eberflus. Show that you care. Go play for your team, for your teammates. Go be a leader. Like, I feel like if he steps up, I think that'd be huge for this offense, because I mean, obviously Justin Fields, that would be the answer that I'd go with, but it would be nice to see Chase Claypool. Also, I'm cheating again, Nate Davis for the entire offensive line, but Nate Davis especially, because my God, that was bad. But yeah, it'd be nice to see Claypool after the disaster, and the fact that the national media is calling him out. Go respond. Because all offseason, there had been all this criticism for Claypool, and we'd been making excuses. He was just traded here in November. He was still learning the system. There's no more excuses. So for him to go out there and perform like that, that's inexcusable. No, go out and make it right.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people that was making excuses for Claypool, because I wanted him to be what we thought he was going to be. And even if he doesn't take those virtuous things that you were saying about being a leader, playing for team, do it for the money. Go get yourself a contract. Go out there and rub it in Chicago's face by saying, I'm not coming back here. I'm going to go get paid. But you're not going to do that if you're getting benched because you refuse to block, or you're going to pout about things. So whatever your motivating factor is, whatever it is, light it up, because we need to see a little more production, a little more effort, and it's going to be in your best interest to do that as well. I would say, obviously, I'm Justin Fields would be the right answer here. But just for the sake of this conversation, and as soon as I presented this question, the chat room had like 9 guys. that shows you how much they need to improve. But I think Eddie Jackson is someone I'd like to see play a little bit better. Hey, I want to see him get back to his ball hawking skills. Also, on that touchdown, he was just way out of position that they threw in the end zone. And I really like Eddie Jackson as a player, and I want to see him flourish with this team. I want him to be the captain of that secondary. I want him to wear that badge as if he's the one, in charge of these young guys, bringing them along in their professional career. I want to see him. I want to see him play really well, and I want to see him get some big interceptions. I also want to see him make the right coverage as well. Even if it doesn't always have to be a home run play, just do the right thing in coverage, and that would go a long way as well. So plenty of people to choose from on who we actually want to improve. Let's talk about the thing that I think that what the Bears want us to be talking about is what they're going to be wearing this week. They're bringing it back. I believe they are going to be wearing the orange jerseys and the orange helmets, and they're going to and I think that they plan this out in case they were embarrassing on week 1, that we would be talking about this rather than how bad they look playing. We're going to just say how bad the jerseys looked. So they're going to go back to those nice fluorescent orange jerseys. Is it more embarrassing if they lose in those in their traditional jerseys? Because that's how I see it. Like, we're gonna stand out with these real bright orange jerseys. There's the helmet right there, and listen. I was kind of a weird supporter of these jerseys. I know I am in the minority here. I kind of like them, mainly because orange is my favorite color, but I think you have to be a really good team to wear it. I think that you have to be. I think you have to be a real good team, and you have to be a powerhouse to wear those jerseys because you're setting yourself up for a lot of ridicule. If you get just throttled in a game and you're wearing those things, you're just opening yourself up to a lot of ridicule. But Danny, still, I know that I believe last year you weren't a huge fan of the orange jerseys. Still not on board with those, I'm guessing.
No, those are some ugly things. And every time I see them, I think of the great game that was between them and the Commanders last year. And I was
yeah,
God. And you don't need that kind of performance offensively again. But I'm not sure about this, but I think the home team picks the jersey. And the only thing that could be a positive for them. It's not there because I think the Bucs going to wear the whites because of the fact that it's 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So then that means they have to wear navy blue. So at least it's not a dark color as a navy blue. So this might be a positive, if you will. But yeah, these are not jerseys that I would ever want to see them wear again.
Alyssa.
Yeah, I actually don't. I like the orange jerseys. I don't like the combo of the orange helmet and the orange jersey at all. Like I like the orange jerseys here and there. But like with that helmet, it's just awful. And like that combination, they were 0-2 last year. And like Danny said, the only positive thing, I think it's just them deciding, hey, we can either let them roast in those midnight blue jerseys, or we can put them in orange, which is going to reflect more light. I guess it's a smart thing. And I don't know. Maybe it's better to get your butt kicked in, jerseys that really aren't the classic Bears uniform. I don't know. It's bad. Like history has not been kind to the Bears with that uniform combination. I mean, I wasn't feeling confident either way, but yeah, it's gonna be ugly.
I was thinking the same thing that PZ was in the chat room. It's like, I hope the Bucs wear their creamsicle one, so then no one knows who anyone is, and so it's just orange on orange on orange out there. But as Michael Pless said, they're probably going to go white on white just because of the heat index that's going to be on that field. I like the orange jerseys because it does remind. I think they wore them a few times in their Super Bowl year in 2006. I remember. I think was Nathan Vasher wearing one of those whenever he took that field goal return back to the house. Was he wearing the orange jersey? I don't know why. I just have like this.
I believe so.
I think it was for Halloween. Yeah, I think it was a Halloween thing.
Yeah.
I just have this nostalgic admiration for the orange jerseys, but I don't think they wore orange helmets when they did that. I think they still had their blue helmets on whenever they were wearing it. So maybe if they go back to the navy helmet with the orange. I still want to see them wear white on white at some point. I want to see the white on the white with the white C on the side. I want to go full retro. I just want to see that once, but that's I know this is where we're at already, guys. It's week 2 and we're talking about jerseys. We're talking about color schemes. We're talking about attire. It's our
Alyssa's making her hot seat list already.
Yeah, Danny, I can't believe
got the graphic ready.
Danny, why don't we have a mock draft out already? What's going on? I mean, it's only a matter of time before Bears fans because it's right around October. Normally, Bears fans are like, okay, let's start mock drafting who the Bears going to take, and so we're not that far away from that, but. I think that we've basically covered everything that we can about this team and what they're up against on Sunday, reacting to what we saw last Sunday. Any parting words or any parting things we want to say going into this game against the Bucs? I'll leave the floor open for anyone that wants to say anything.
See you on the other side.
There you go.
My big thing is, in all seriousness, I want to see how this team comes back and responds. I mean, it will tell me a lot about their character in terms of, hey, we were embarrassed. Justin Fields came out after the game and apologized to the fans and his teammates. Said, we're going to get better. So he's the face of the franchise. He's the leader of this team. So let's go ahead and see what he does and how they perform here. Obviously, that shows the character of the football team. That also shows, hey, you know what? That Matt Eberflus and the staff still has control of this of this locker room, because, that second half where you looked at them, laying on, or not laying, but like kind of like slumped in their seats on the bench, and just looking like they're, kind of defeated attitude. That wasn't a good look for them. And, how you talked about, they've lost 11 in a row now, and if you lose this game, that's 12 in a row, even though they talk about building a good foundation, a good culture, what you're building right now is a losing culture. In order to get out of a losing culture, you're gonna have to start winning. You have to win some games, and whether it's this week and then next week or whatever, you got to come out of these first 4 games at least, like I said, 2-2. The Packers game sucked. It was horrible. It was deflating. Whatever you want to call it, you can call it, but it's just one game. It's just one game, and let's see if they can rebound. Get a win on the road. That'd be huge uplift to the spirits of the team. Obviously, next week going to be challenging with the Chiefs, but then maybe you come back with Denver here at home. Denver's no world beater. Maybe you can come back and you can even your record at 2-2. So that first quarter of that season, you're 2-2, and now you can kind of pick up from there and continue to get better. So the good news is, as bad as the tape was, a lot of the things are coachable. Now you can't coach Lucas Patrick to be a better player. That's beyond the point. But the other stuff, like Braxton Jones, horrible game. He can play better, right? Whitehair can play better. Darnell Wright is a rookie making his first start. He can play better. I think Nate Davis, he had a horrible showing. I tweeted some of his things out this afternoon. He could play better. So that's the positives, that you can coach them up, get them better, get them to improve. And obviously now the scheme, the play calling has got to get better. So there are positive things to look at, for the future and see if this team can get better. Look at last year in Detroit. Detroit was 1-6, and everybody was firing Dan Campbell. And then all of a sudden they just got a win that sparked the young team. And then they got better and better towards the end of the season. They're one of the hottest teams in football. And now they've carried that momentum into this year. So, it looks bad. It feels bad. We feel like crap. But you know what? There's an opportunity to go out there, get a win. Winning a game in the National Football League is tough, especially on the road. So you come out there, you get a win. That kind of will kind of get the troops, enthusiasm back up. And hopefully that tells us a lot about the character of this football team, its leaders, and the coaching staff.
Agreed. And I'll say this before we wrap it up. Listen, I know we've been pretty doom and gloom on this show and talking about all the deficiencies we saw in week 1. I hope and pray that this team proves us wrong on everything we're saying. I hope they come out and blow the doors off of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I hope that everything we're saying now gets played back in 4 or 5 weeks and say, look how much these people are overreacting. Look how bad they buried the Bears after week 1, and look at them now. I hope that's the case. I'm not rooting to be right. I'm rooting for them to win. I'm rooting for them to be good. I don't care if I'm wrong about everything. I was wrong last year about them being the worst team in the league. I didn't mind that they got the number 1 overall pick. I wasn't rooting to be right. I was rooting for the franchise. So I hope all of this stuff we're saying gets played back in 5, 6, 7 weeks and say, what an overreaction. But I don't think it will be, but I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping they come out on fire. They're pissed off. They're reevaluating things. They readjust some things. They come out and they're an entirely different team in week 2 than they were in week 1. I hope. I just can't emotionally invest in that anymore because it's not good for my health. It's not good for any of our health to think they're magically going to flip a switch and just and maybe that's the shirt and I'm sure this is thrilling for the people in the podcast version of this, but we have a shirt that has Justin Fields on it that says hope. That's all we have right now, and that's all that we can kind of grip on to. So that'll wrap it up for this week's show. Before we shut it down, Alyssa, tell us what's happening over at bearwire.com. I'm sure you have about 5 million stories out. What are some of the hot things coming out?
Yeah, make sure you check out Bears Wire. We're going to have all the latest news analysis. We're previewing the game against the Buccaneers, and we're going to be breaking it down after the game. Win or lose, hopefully it's a win, leaning towards loss. But, yeah, we're going to try to make sense of it all and really hoping it's a win. Really hoping Justin Fields is not murdered on the field at Raymond James Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, we're all hoping for something to spark, and we're going to see a change that we saw from last week. Danny, if things don't change, people are going to be clamoring for a mock draft. So what's going on with Draft on Tap and your current analysis of some of these prospects?
Well, I know you were just joking about mock drafts, but I've already started looking at next year's class. I didn't think I'd be mocking him anytime soon, but hey, you never know. So there's a ton of holes on this team as we all saw last week. Hopefully by the end of the season, some of those answered or questions we have will be answered, and some of these players step up and claim their rightful spots on this team. But in the meantime, Drafts on Tap will be coming back after the season concludes, the Bear season concludes. But in the meantime, I'm going to be still looking at prospects, and I'm going to be throughout the season just kind of dropping some clips here and there about players to keep an eye on, collegiate players that could fit in this scheme. It could be very very helpful for the Bears. So looking for receivers, looking for defensive line and offensive line help.
Sounds good. And don't forget to join Danny, me, and our new analyst, Coach T, on Bear Football directly after the game for our post-game show, the Bear Football. The three of us will share our immediate reactions, carry Coach Eberflus and Justin Fields' press conferences, and break down the key plays of the game. But that will do it for us tonight. For Alyssa Barbieri and Danny Shimon, I'm John Buffone. We'll see you next week right here on Buffone 55. It's week 2, baby. Buckle up. It should be interesting. We'll see you next time.